My God.
I'm a cartoon.
And you recorded that. You recorded me saying I'm a cartoon character.
I'm a cartoon.
Look at me. Where did that voice come from?
Look at me.
Look at me.
I'm a cartoon. I'm hideously drawn cartoon. The only way I look normal is if I'm fake. If I'm a real person, something is wrong. I'm a horribly drawn cartoon.
Well, I didn't say it was horribly drawn.
I added that for dramatic effect. Because it's sad now. Like you, Brad, you are sad. You are a sadly, horribly drawn cartoon. And I stand aside in the corner and laugh and cry at the same time. Okay, everybody, quiet on the set.
Take 5.
You still can't get it right.
Film every podcast. Take what?
It's take 6.
You gotta remind me this crap. I don't pay attention to our show.
Okay, everybody, quiet on the set.
Film every podcast. Take 6.
And action. Hello, Film Reverie podcast listeners. This is Michael Beckemeyer, and we're here today with
Bradley Kingston.
and a actress from New York. Her name is Erin Cronican. And hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I am great. The weather's actually really nice today, so, it limits the number of people complaining in New York, which is a big deal.
Does it really? Like, people actually complain less?
Well, little things. So if the weather goes wonky for a day, then the very next day that it goes back to normal, it's a little easier, and then they go back to just complaining about everything.
Yeah, that'd be me all the time.
That would be.
I've heard this about you, Brad.
I've never actually been in New York during the winter. I've been there like in June, really. I've been there a handful of times, but it was always like in the warmer months. But people always say that New York like absolutely transforms during Christmas, like the Christmas time. Does it like
really
turn
does.
into a happier place?
That's tough. Happy, I don't know, but it's I grew up in San Diego where there was no such thing as a white Christmas.
Yeah.
So the idea that you can be in a city that, it's actually really temperate. It's not as frigid as it could be at that time of year. So it's still just, temperatures are just starting to drop. If you're lucky, you get snow around Christmas time, and so all the lights, it's just such a bustling city. But then, of course, it turns into black sludge the next day whenever there's a fresh snow. So we'll always find something to complain about.
Yeah, it's always something, I guess. I love New York City from the couple of times, like the handful of times. I think I've only been there like 3 or 4 times, but I always loved it.
So I'm interested. What do you do in New York?
Said she's an actress.
I know, but she does more than that.
You're ruining the conversation.
What's your thing?
My thing.
She's a professional. Tell us all about it.
I moved here for 2 reasons. One, because it's the kind of mecca for theater actors, and then also pizza. I really needed
cheesecake, too. I've had New York cheesecake in New York. It is the best in New York.
Yeah. And, you just caught a sneeze in a podcast. That was awesome. All right, I was like, can I get through this? No, I cannot. So I moved here for pizza and acting.
Yeah.
And I had already started in San Diego, where I'm from, this sort of path of using the skill set that I had in my I guess, out of school. Even though I had a theater degree, I still got a real job, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And in an advertising publication, and I was working in the sales and marketing department. So I found that I could use those skills to really create a life that of service to the people in my industry. I started to notice that actors really were disempowered in their work. They can do a lot of advanced training and never get anywhere because people don't teach them about the business. And in fact, it's kind of the idea of business and marketing seems to be the antithesis to good art. Because if you're going to make great art, you shouldn't think about what the end result is or how you're going to sell it. And so there are a lot of artists who are just extraordinarily unhappy and either stay in the industry and are unhappy, or they get out of the industry when they have a lot to offer. So when I moved to New York, I thought, what better way to spend my time than try to find opportunities for me to share what I know in sales, marketing, and advertising within the realm of what it means to be an artist, and really try to empower people to take back some control over their lives and actually live a happy and productive life.
I have a question. Do you find that a lot of the actors are disempowered largely due to all the rejection that they have to go through? And what do you tell them?
I think so, and I think part of the rejection that is most difficult is that loss of control. So it's not just, no, we don't want you. It's, no, we don't want you, and you can't do anything about making your life better. Because we always feel like we have no control over when we get our next gig. So what I try to work with actors is to understand what can they control, what can't they control, and in those areas where they can control things, how do they improve upon that area? A lot of times we think we can control whether someone likes us or whether someone thinks we're talented. Mm-hmm. So we spend all our time trying to make people like us, and while you can build up a great relationship with a group of people, or you can build up a great skill set, even that isn't enough. And that can be really demoralizing. And I can imagine it's the same for writers who can be really at the top of their game, but if they don't get that story in front of the right person at the right time, it's like they never did it at all.
Yeah, we had someone on our show. His name is Dan Walks, and I think it was an episode, or take two. Sorry, we don't call them episodes, they're takes. Take two. But he said something in that he had heard from someone that said the greatest actor alive right now is probably somebody you've never even heard of, because they just hadn't gotten the break, the one thing that took them to the next level so that everybody could know about them. It's just some random person in some random city somewhere who's just, nobody had heard of yet.
Right.
Well,
and I think that there's a story out there that says that in order for an artist's life to be meaningful, they have to make it. And so it's almost like we as a society put a premium on getting to a certain level. And I think we forget that art as a whole is important at every level of society, that storytelling is vital, and it needs to not be just the best of the best and the elite. And I think that so what we're telling young artists a lot, writers and actors and directors and producers, is that it's not meaningful to just be doing your art. You have to be better than everybody else. And with that, that's how funding goes. So it's like our society bought into this idea, and so the funding only goes to the biggest and the brightest. And so those stories which actually can make a real impact aren't getting funded, and therefore our artists aren't getting funded, and the art of storytelling is dying. It is dying. And we are all able to do it. We all have our phones, and we're shooting things, and we're getting together in basements, but no one's getting paid to do it.
Yeah, I'm just a little curious, because you mentioned about disempowering and empowering before, and I wonder, how did you get to what do you do as far as helping people? Like, are you do you have a job where that's what you do, is you empower actors? And I'm wondering, how did you get to that place where you knew that was what you had to do?
So my life is divided into three in terms of my professional life, into three key areas. So I'm an actor first and foremost. And then as one of my day jobs, quote unquote, I'm a business coach for actors. I run a career coaching service called The Actors Enterprise. And through that, I do private coaching to help actors one-on-one understand what is their value as an artist and how can they get the word out about that. And then I deal with other things like how to find supportive day jobs and how to budget your time and how to find good audition materials that really say who you are, and how do you navigate an industry that at once is artistic and also business-driven, which don't tend to talk to one another. Mm-hmm. And then the third arm of my professional life is I run a theater company called the Seeing Place Theater, as in seeing with your eyes. And it's an indie theater company here in New York, and it's all driven by actors. So the actors who are in the company, work together year-round and also do all the behind-the-scenes work. So we're actually theater makers, and that the name of our theater company actually comes from the original, the translation of the word theater, which was originally a Greek word, which meant the place we go to understand ourselves.
Huh.
So that's what the seeing place means.
That's cool.
So, yeah.
So, do you, excuse me, would you call yourself the stuff that you coach your actors with is, would you call it like branding, or would you just call it diligence or principles, or like if you had to sum it up into like one word, like what would you say?
What I teach them?
Yeah. Or like how
branding is.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Branding is only a small part of it, so I would say it's really, I just call it career coaching or business coaching.
Career coaching
for actors. Yeah.
So, do you concentrate on actors just because you're also an actor and you basically speak the language, or would you ever consider
exactly? Now, I've had a lot of requests recently to expand my services to include directors and writers. Essentially, I work with solo entrepreneurs who are interested in the arts. The problem with directing and writing is that that's a whole other field that I would need to develop a deep expertise in order to really feel like I'm helping. But the basics of marketing are pretty much the same.
Yeah.
I just can't make as many connections for a writer as I can an actor, but I do help them as much as I can.
So when did you how did you end up taking yourself down this like course of being like a real live artist? Like, were you you decided at some point in time in your life that you're going to be a creative person, and that's how you're going to live or die by that code of being a creative artist, and you're going to go live in New York and you're going to be creative, and that's how you're going to make your money, is by doing creative things. Like, tell me the story of how you fell in love with it.
Yeah, well, I had been just kind of acting up my whole life. Yeah, that's not a funny joke at all. But I did my first play when I was in 5th grade, and it was Charlotte's Web, and I had already memorized the whole movie. So I, as a young person, had always gotten a lot of applause around my family if I memorized something, but it was always school related. So if I memorized a book or something like that. So I got really early on that I was good at something, and then to get to act out Charlotte's Web in front of a bunch of people, that was really exciting. It really wasn't until I got into high school where I started to understand that all of the performing that I love to do, the singing and the acting, was something that I could do as a career. But even still, there isn't a lot of support out there unless you're rich or you have parents who are actors.
Right.
It's hard to know exactly which way to go, especially if you're from a middle-class family, like I said, who didn't have a whole lot of resources. So I did go to school for theater. I went to Pepperdine in Malibu in California and got a great education there, and then went down and worked in what would be considered the regional circuit, but really going back down and doing professional theater in San Diego. And I realized that once I got my equity card down there, I stopped working. There just wasn't enough work for a young woman in San Diego that was union work. So I, through a series of personal choices, I had dated somebody who had family in New York, and we considered going together, and then we ended up breaking up. So I had a choice. I could either stay in San Diego and get another lease. We had lived together. I could get another lease, or I could plan to make a move, and that's what I did. So I moved to New York in 2005. I also and I usually recommend to anyone, I wanted to see what it would be like to just pick up and go somewhere and really create a life that was on my own terms.
Yeah.
That didn't have to do with any other choices other than I just want to try. And I knew I could always move back if I wanted to, but once I landed, once I took my one-way ticket, I took a red-eye to New York with my dog in a bag and
you put
another
your dog
suitcase.
you put your dog in a bag?
I did. Well, they make you do that.
It's got air holes and stuff. It's not like she
okay.
stuffed him in a duffel bag.
Suffocating. 8 heads in a duffel
Exactly.
bag.
And then just threw him in the overhead compartment.
Exactly. No. She went under the seat. It was fine.
Okay, good. All right,
But
just
yeah,
making
and
sure.
I brought her to New York, and that was that. And that was 2005. So
Okay.
it was a really important move for me in my life. So
Yeah, like big. Like, this is me saying, this is it. I'm starting from here, and we're going to be at ground zero, but we're going to build our way up.
yeah.
When you made that move, what did you find was the thing, what did you least expect? Good or bad? Like, what was the thing that
good or
caught
bad.
you off guard? Yeah. Like,
Let's see. Well, I'll give you two answers. I'll give you the career-based answer and then the city-based answer. The city-based answer was, I could not believe how difficult it was to qualify for an apartment here. It's like buying an apartment anywhere else. It's ridiculous. So if anybody needs any advice about how to find a place to live here once they get here, just, ring me up. I will help. That was crazy. Also, there are a lot of smells in New York. That doesn't happen anywhere else.
like good smells or bad
some of them
smells?
are really good.
Bad. All bad.
Oh, man. Each
That's awesome.
season has its own smell. Like summer is the smell of pee and garbage. It's awful. But it's also the smell of, yeah. So that's something that really surprises people. It just smells. And sometimes it smells great. Like in the winter, you've got the smell of fire, the crackling. You've got smells of like hot roasted peanuts on the street. That smells really great. But
Yeah.
oof. So that's the city answer. What I was surprised about when I got here with my career is that, when I was in San Diego, I spent 3 years helping to run a nonprofit service organization for actors. It was called the Actors Alliance. It's still there in San Diego. It's amazing. You guys who are in San Diego have to become a member. So when I moved to New York, I thought, I have this experience in the nonprofit world. I'll find an organization like this one, and then I'll be happy and I'll have a job. And I found that one really didn't exist here in New York. So I think that people assume that because New York is so big and has so many people, that the resources will be plentiful. But what I found was that they're really spread out and hard to find. There's no one governing body that says this is the place you go when you need resources as an actor. You could go to the Actors Fund. That's probably the closest, or the unions. But all of those are driven by the unions. So if you're a non-union actor, there's really no one central place for you to go. And also the career coaching is very expensive. So a lot of the information about how to make it in the business is proprietary and exclusive. So that's one of the reasons why when I got here, I was like, that's why I'm here. I'm actually need to transform the way that people look at actors and the way that actors go about their lives here. So.
Do you find that, or do you think that part of the problem of what you were just describing is it because it's oversaturated, like in California? Is New York kind of the same, or is just everybody is in the business of show business, so it's like hard to, get the good jobs because they keep it all to, you got to know somebody?
Yeah, I think that's part of it, and I think that mostly it's just funding. It's very expensive to do the things we want to do, and so
if you show up with money, they'll do it. Hey, let's go.
Yeah. So that limits who they want to bring on for things, and certainly this is a highly saturated market, just like Los Angeles. So it's there are way too many talented people here for the few roles that are available, and that's why self-producing is such an important part of of how an actor, and writers and directors as well, if they can produce their own work, that can help them get in the door, or at least feel some artistic satisfaction. But we're sort of taught that, two things actually. We're taught that our self-worth is given by other people, and it's especially given by other people who don't know us.
Yeah.
Because if someone who doesn't know us says, I choose you, that must mean I'm great. But, Michael and I were talking about a film that he had written, I don't know, a year and a half ago maybe?
Yeah, a while back.
When was it that we talked about that? Yeah. And there is a tendency for actors to think, but that's just because he knows me from Twitter. That's not real.
Yeah.
Except that relationships are everything.
Yeah.
And that is what we're all aspiring to, that we can build such great relationships that someone who trusts us says you, without you having to do anything else but be you. We forget that that's how it actually works, and therefore our lives are all around trying to get the approval of some person that we've never met before.
Yeah, I like how you in your last two answers, it sounds like you're kind of suggesting that if you don't find the job that is for you, I guess, that you have to create it. Like you said, when you got there, you thought that you could find a nonprofit job or something, or use your experience, and then you realize that that job wasn't there waiting for you, and you kind of just had to create a job for yourself. And it seems like the actors kind of have to do the same thing. You can't just wait for somebody to notice you.
Right, because I thought when I got here there was going to be a red carpet. Welcome.
Red carpet. Well, you made it. Yeah.
You got your dog into a bag. It didn't. No, it doesn't work like that. It's very sad.
So, that I'm sure you know this. You probably are like this. Like, artists and creative people are notoriously bad at things like self-promotion and getting work. And like you were just saying, like that thing on, like you said, oh, well, they sent me this because they just know me from Twitter. It's like, it's like some people's, like you like when you tend to sit around waiting for an opportunity to come before you realize it's staring you right in the face because you're not like looking at it the right way. You don't have the right perspective. How do you like, I don't know, coach people to balance the art versus commerce thing so that they can actually do what they want to do for a living and also feel like they're also not selling out? I don't know, this might not be the right way to say it, but the art versus commerce, being creative and an artistic person, but also being able to market themselves so that they're visible.
Yeah, that's like the $1 million question, I feel like.
Do you not have an answer? It's like, I'm not sure. Like, I'm still trying to figure that out.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And I think that if I had the pat answer, then I would bottle it and sell it and make lots of money from it. But I think that it's really about an artist understanding their unique value. And part of that is knowing what your personal story is. And actors in particular have a difficulty with that because we have been trained and brought up to believe that our value is in disappearing in our work and doing lots of different things.
Do you find that... I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I wanted to know, because you kind of touched on it, do you find that a lot of the actors are insecure? Because that's what I was kind of wondering that when you talk about marketing and all that, because I'm one of those people that I need to get someone else like to work with me and, do the market, because I'm not going to market myself. Yeah. I just can't do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we don't train actors on how to do that. No one who runs a business does it without help. The rest of the world does this thing called getting an MBA.
Yeah.
Or they get a mentor, or they get seed money from a venture capitalist to help create that structure for them.
Right.
But an actor is forced to do it alone. And then they feel so lost, and they don't want to lose themselves in this marketing, and because you're really selling yourself as a product. Also, it's very difficult. And I think that understanding what it is that makes an actor unique, which is not your skill set, is not your how much training you've had. It's not who you know. The skill set is that thing that makes you look at a script and interpret it the way you do.
Yeah.
And that is all based on your biases, who you are as a human being, every life experience you've had, and your ability to be sensitive, to be curious, and to be empathic.
So do you the best you can is what it sounds like.
You know,
exactly right. But that's scary. That's really scary to assume that you can say, oh, well, because it's hard to measure. So someone can measure how many classes they've taken or how many people that they've met.
Right.
But when we get hired because I look at the script and I bring it in a special way. And so if an actor knows, oh, that's how I do that, and I do that based on my life and who I am, therefore there is no real competition in the world because no one else has that. Now it's all logistics.
Yeah. Two things. Like, I was as I'm listening to you talk, I'm thinking that if there was somebody that had to market themselves, there's honestly should be no one more suited for it than an actor. Like, in a way, that's kind of what they do. You know, they present themselves in a certain way, one way or the other, and in a way, they have to be able to become something that they may not be naturally. You know, it's a performance. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And another thing you said is something that I always say is. Or a version of something I always say is there's no right way to do something. The reason you are the right person for, maybe not the right person, but the reason why you can do a good job at something is because no one else can do it the way you do it, the way you might do it. Nobody would make a Mike Beckemeyer movie. Martin Scorsese might come in and say, I'm going to do it this way, and no one's going to argue with him because he's Martin Scorsese, and why would he want to do it any other way? But it doesn't mean that I wouldn't also do a good job, or somebody else might not do a good job. It's like you said, their perspective, their life story, everything in your life is built up and prepared you for this exact moment, and you got to take it and run with it. You have to be able to trust that, and go with it.
Yes, and then you have to create your own measure of success.
Yeah. So
that at the end of an audition or at the end of a week or you can look back and know, okay, these are the things that happened. This is what I intended to happen. Where was the breakdown in what, between those two things, and how can I make an adjustment for next time? Yeah. And so it's not like you just like, oh, I'll just go out there and live my bliss and things will happen or not. You actually do have to put things into place. But it's putting your attention on the right things, the things you can actually control, and the things that actually empower you. We're not empowered by the conversation, I'm no good.
Yeah.
Even if it makes you take more classes, that's still not an empowering conversation. It does not leave you with any power in this industry.
Yeah.
So I try to refocus people's attention on what is a powerful conversation, where can you actually make an improvement in a way that means something, so then at the end of every day, you're like, yeah, I did it. And you're not an aspiring actor, you are an actor.
Yeah,
There's no such thing as an aspiring writer. You either write or you don't.
I hate that word.
What level do you get to?
Yeah, because it doesn't really take any skill to take another class. Like, it doesn't prove that you're talented.
Right.
If you take a class, look at all these classes I've taken, it doesn't really mean anything if you...
Right.
If you're not...
Consider... Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I was saying if you have... it doesn't matter. You could take 1 million classes, and, it's not the thing that's going to get you... It's thinking about those things that's going to get you a gig or get you in front of somebody, but it's not necessarily...
Now, consider, though, that you've got an industry that's oversaturated. So what ends up happening is those classes become a first line of you can actually redline somebody out of something. Yeah. So me as a producer for my theater company, I can say, I'll give a perfect example for actors. If we post a notice on Actors Access, which is the casting website, we always say, please leave a note and let us know your training and your interest in being part of an ensemble theater company. And then we give our website. And of the 1,500 submissions we might get for one project, just on Actors Access, I would say probably only 30 to 40% leave a note. And so I can use that as a way to whittle the playing field down to that 30 to 40% easily.
Right.
Done.
Yeah,
And
it's
so it's not
like
about their talent, but it's like this, and it's the same thing for education. Some people might say, I really want to see an MFA.
yeah.
And so they'll use that to whittle down the playing field. The result is that the actor doesn't get cast. What the actor takes away is, oh, I'm not enough.
Yeah.
And that's where the problem happens, rather than, oh, they just made a choice based on this. Now, in my example from Actors Access, write a note. If it says write a note, you can't really control what level of education you have if someone else wants something different. But it's just maddening what goes on in the industry that we have no control over, and yet we think we do, and we use that to judge our worth.
Yeah, and then you get there, you get through all the hoops, you wrote a note, you got in, all that stuff, you go to the audition, and like, oh, you have blonde hair, we were looking for, then it's still like a physical rejection that I'm sure has to feel like
you're not good enough.
It's because they don't like me. That's what I'm saying. That's why I always say about actors is I respect them so to the highest extent, because they, number one, they're trying to get work. So a lot of times they'll end up working with people just so they can get a job, and not necessarily because they're like, oh, I was so connected to the story. They're just trying to work too. Like, you have to do stuff to get experience.
Yeah, like background work. You could do a career just on background work, and it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, and then you get on this film and you're working with this person. You're so like, I am the one that got the job, and then the director is horrible or awful and doesn't know what he or she is doing.
And you don't want to tell anyone that you were ever in that.
Right, but you end up having to do it. But more than anything, no one's going to be able to look at that movie and say the director's fault.
Like, the whole movie sucks, but that guy's acting was brilliant.
Yeah, and it's the actor that's the one that's got to stand in front of the camera or on the stage, wherever, and take the physical blame for how good or bad something is, and it's filmmakers are constantly asking actors to do ridiculous shit that
stuff they've never done before.
I see some actors in some of their demo reels, and I'm like, these filmmakers are, what were they thinking? Mm-hmm. And it's the one or two things that this actor has in their demo reel that's the one thing they've got to like show for themselves. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I feel so sorry for the actor, Yeah,
and that's another thing too, is that they open themselves up. They make themselves so vulnerable constantly, and they get beat up because they're putting their armor down and putting themselves out there and just constantly, and then having to get back up and do it again. So it's amazing.
So how do you do that? How do you do it? What's the trick?
I have to keep something secret.
Something to do with the Neo, right? From the Matrix. You just dodge the bullets.
Yep. Yeah. It's just a blue pill. That's all it is.
So, awesome. So, how do you? Okay, let's say you're coaching somebody, and they have all the, like you said, they have all the classes, they got the headshots, and they're ready to go, and all of that stuff, and you're coaching them through, and then you sort of realize maybe the reason they're not getting any work is really because they either aren't there yet, or they aren't very talented, and they're trying to do something that they might not be naturally suited for. Mm-hmm. How do you coach them? Like, what is the coaching advice you give there? To keep working at it, or, to focus on this, to bring this skill level up so that you can actually get in front of more people? Or do you actually coach people and say, you shouldn't be doing this?
Some people,
And I'm not saying if you want to be creative and you want to be an artist, you should never not do it just because you aren't very good,
Right.
So there's like a balance
The stuff that I work on with people is really not in the talent category.
Yeah.
So I'm really working on the business side, and then how they apply the talent they have to their audition skills. And
it's like
so
a golf
I'll usually
teacher.
Partner with acting teachers. If I see them in their audition materials and I say, they're not really connecting to this piece, and it's not something I can help with, I'll usually make sure they're in class and let that teacher deal with that conversation. Most of the time, unfortunately, the actor will count themselves out much earlier than I or another professional would have to.
It's hard.
Because unfortunately, they're going to get that clue much earlier.
Yeah.
And like you said, they're going to get the clue whether or not that is the clue that they are being given. They're going to, you're
Right.
saying they tend to think,
Yep.
I'm just not very good, and so I'm going to quit.
And
Yeah.
so
Okay.
it's really about me trying to find out what is it the actor is passionate about, what are they passionate about doing, and most of the time, if an actor is just not finding the results they want, they do find it in self-producing.
Right.
Because then that's not about, the talent now is about assembling a good group of people who they can work with.
Yeah,
So
see,
that
a
might be the
mastermind group.
conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a really tough thing, and it puts a coach into an awkward position because you want to be as empowering as you can be, while also recognizing that I'm one opinion. So whether I think someone's talented or not is almost beside the point. I need to make sure I'm forthright or forthcoming so that they understand what I think I can do to help. So I'm not going to pull punches in that way, but it's really who am I to say?
Do you find that a lot of people get into a situation with you and have to admit to themselves that they didn't realize it was going to be as hard a work as it is?
Yeah, I think usually by the time someone comes to me, that's what they've realized.
Yeah.
Most of the time, people come to me after trying to do everything on their own and realizing that they don't want to have to do it by themselves anymore, and they're really at their wits' end. And a lot of people come to me with I either make this happen now or I quit.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting conversation because I can't help them in just 2 months or 6 months. I can give them the tools, but it takes a lot longer to put that stuff into play. So
what's your advice? Do you advise them, well, if you really want to quit, if you're ready to quit, or
go ahead, do it now. Don't waste your time.
Yeah, because for me, I find it always so hard to, if they're talking to me, I find it very hard to sort of sign off to co-sign their willingness to quit by giving them permission to quitting, because I don't like to quit. So it's me telegraphing my own issues. I'm not going to quit.
It's not possible.
It's not possible. I would be miserable if I quit. And I feel like my go-to advice on somebody is maybe I should do something else, whatever it is. Maybe it's you want to be a tennis player. I look at it the same way.
In other words, find your gift.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And my initial advice is never going to be, well, if you want to quit, you should quit. However, the other piece of really constant advice you hear from people is, if you can do anything else and be happy at it, do that, because this
see, I hate that so much. Here's the thing, because that makes it seem like you can't be passionate about two things.
Right.
I think that the quote actually needs to be, if you can imagine yourself never acting again, then don't act.
Ooh. Yay, that's an Oprah tweet quotable moment.
Yeah,
so
that's the thing. Because then my life, this is how my life was created. I was on the path of I was 25 years old, working at a national advertising publication. I owned a condo. I had my 401k. I was set. But then I got my equity card, and I was like, oh, crap, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And I had created this story that I needed to hate my day job, because if I loved anything else, I might as well do that.
Yeah.
So I robbed myself of the opportunity to really make a difference in my world, to have a day job I love that actually inspires me. That's something that I would continue even if I made it big on Broadway or in movies. It's a matter of managing your resources. And your resources are your time, your energy, and your money.
I like the idea, though, that instead of kind of reversing it, like you said, where challenge someone to think. Let's say you never did, if you asked me, if you're never able to, work in production or do something in audio or video, or if you never do that again, how would you feel? I'd be like, I would want to die.
Yeah.
I couldn't not do that. That's why we're doing this podcast, because we got to do something until we can do something better.
I do think that is great advice. Also, the idea of I still have never been able to tell somebody, if you even what you said, I would still feel like, my God, I need to convince them but it's me. It's me trying to convince them to do something that I love so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know that that's not really helpful because it's also just making someone feel guilty.
Yeah, I mean, but what I do in those cases is I say, look, based on what you've told me, this is the avenue that you need to take in order to get to where you want to be. And you have to decide if that is an avenue you want to take. If you don't, I don't see any other way for you to get there. So that's a choice you want to make. And so they get to really choose. So it's not about me saying yes or no. It's really just, this is what you're looking at.
You're trying to help them. How can you tell when someone's just, I don't know, like guarding themselves, like self-protecting, like self-preservation? Yeah, I just, they tell you all this stuff, and it's like, they're like really trying to convince themselves that they should be okay not doing it anymore. Everyone. Yeah. And so what do?
I don't think there's an exception.
So you're like a therapist.
Yep.
Yeah. When she said coach, I kind of I extrapolated, read between the lines, because that's what coaches kind of end up having to do. You're like
you're a brain surgeon. You do brain surgery.
Yeah, and it's really funny. I created this life that I have, this sort of viewpoint. It's like I said, I was going one direction, and all of a sudden I made a switch, right?
Yeah.
And it was through people take all kinds of different classes or courses. What worked for me was I went through what's called the Landmark Forum. Landmark Education is an education corporation that's all around the world, and I had taken a class called the Landmark Forum, which is a class that's designed to help you live your life powerfully. And it was right around that time where I had gotten my equity card and was trying to figure out what to do. And we had as I was working with a coach there and taking classes, I was put through this inquiry of, okay, well, what did you want to be when you grew up? Aside from being an actor, what did you want? And there were two things that I couldn't decide between.
Was one of them a princess? I'm sorry.
That was one of them.
Yeah, say what?
Was one of them a princess?
Exactly. Yep. One being a teacher or the other being a psychologist.
Ooh, cool. And now you're both.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I know. So I put those two aside because I thought, well, those aren't back burner kind of jobs while I become an actor.
Mm-hmm.
I can't possibly do those things, so I'll just do this other thing. And then, fast forward, and I was still doing this sort of corporate stuff. And just for me, through that education and then having a support system, created a job that would allow me to take the skills that I had and impact a community that mattered to me, which was the acting community. And that's how I created the coaching. And that's really how my boyfriend and I, who run the theater company, it was really his brainchild, and I helped him bring it to life because it was important to me to have a place that I could call my artistic home.
But see, that's another good point that you're making, kind of without, you're making it by telling the story, but you're using a principle that Mike and I practice, which is succeeding by helping others to succeed, and I just love it.
So, but you segued perfectly because I was just about to ask you about your theater company. So like you're saying it like your own, you like practice what you preach. You are self-producing.
Yeah. So
that you can create a place for you to, like you said, have a creative home. How did you come to tell us about your theater company?
Thank you. It is, again, it's named the Scene Place Theater. And actually, when it got started, Brandon, who started the company alongside me, it's really like I said, his baby. We had already been close. He's from San Diego as well, but he had moved to New York after I did. And we were just friends at that point. And he and I had collaborated on a couple of things that did not pan out, projects we wanted to do. And then he approached me and said, I would like to start a theater company. And I had just started my coaching business. So I was like, no, I don't want to be a part of that. That's too much work. That's crazy, And he basically strong-armed me into it.
You got New York in the background.
Yeah, you got New York setting. Perfect New York setting.
The window.
Yeah, that's okay. It's okay. Yeah. I love it. It sounds like real. It's like real.
It's real. I'm not faking it.
Yeah.
There's no Foley artifact here with that. Nope. So initially I said no because it just seemed like impossible and really big. But I joined at the core level of the company and helped get it started. Just I didn't want to act in it quite yet. I had also, as a performer, I had created this crazy story in my head that because I hadn't been successful in auditioning for plays for a while, but I had been very successful auditioning for film and TV, that maybe the industry didn't want me in plays. So when he offered me this opportunity to be in a theater company that does plays, I poo-pooed it. Thought, no, I can't do that. But I saw what an impact doing the kind of theater that we do has on our community, and that there are very few theater companies that do the work that we do in the way that we do it. So there's room for us. And it's just, it's an amazing, amazing company. We do really intimate and visceral productions. The common thing that people say when they come out of our shows is that they've been deeply affected by what they saw on the stage and really felt like they were watching a real event, that there was no artifice, that it didn't seem like it was being presented to us in the same show every night. And that's something that's really important to us. We really want to start a dialogue with our audience and help people to see that, just like our name implies, the theater is where you go to see yourself. And it's the same thing for film. But the beauty about going to the theater is that you can then have a conversation with those artists and talk about and it's a collective experience at one moment in time that can't be repeated. And so that's what we aim to do. And we're kind of mavericks in the New York theater scene, which does not make it easy. Independent theater is all about new work. So if you can get a new play produced, you'll get all kinds of attention. But we're an acting company, and acting companies require scripts that are pretty much set. So right. Unless we were a writer's company, and then we would have to be developing works with a writer. But so we do primarily published works that people have heard of. And we get a lot of people say things like, we already saw a good production of that play on Broadway, we don't need to see yours.
Yeah.
And so it becomes a question of, what is the point of publishing a play then if you just want to see it once and you don't think anyone else has anything to put on this? Or they'll even say, when we did Closer by Patrick Marber, which was also a movie, that did not get great reception in New York on Broadway. So people said, so we had the play version with Natasha Richardson directed by Patrick Marber himself, and that wasn't good. So how can your play be any better? We don't want to see it.
Right.
So that's kind of what we're up against, but we still feel very strongly that we have something worth sharing. And I'm committed to providing a home for actors where our voice is heard, where we're not just a conduit for a director's vision. We have our own vision as artists that we put together into a story that is then meant to be shared.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's like art for the art's sake, you know? You know what I mean? Yeah, in a way. And that's, practicing, keeping your muscles.
Sharpening the saw.
Sharpening your saw. It's like sharpening.
We're going to do it anyway, because.
Yeah. And it's good. Because do you find that if you had 100 actors, or let's just say 10 actors standing in front of you, what would be the percentage of them that really just needed more time on a stage, like performing with people, like before they could actually like step up to that next level? Is it one of those things, like you just said, all of them, like everybody always needs more time so that they can grow, or?
Yeah, because what happens here, especially in New York, well, you know what, anywhere. In a small market, it happens too. So in New York, it's that the productions can only run for so long. There are limits to how long things can run here, mostly because of money, because it's just so expensive to produce here. And then in smaller markets, there just aren't enough plays. So in San Diego, I would audition for the summer season of musicals, and if I didn't book one, I didn't work for 6 months. So there's just not enough performance opportunity as a whole, and then performance opportunity that is meaningful. And then as a side, struggle, and this was the case in particular in New York and LA, where there's this pressure to have a flexible life so you can take any job that comes at you. Most actors in New York work 2 or 3 jobs. We don't have health insurance. We don't make enough to pay our bills, and we're struggling. And, and we as an independent theater company, it's not like we're helping the problem because we don't have a lot of money to pay people. So I'm on a mission right now.
Here, homeless and want to act? Come with us.
Yeah. So we're on a mission to try to make sure that our actors get paid for the work that they do here. We're developing an outreach project right now, which employs our actors as teaching artists. I have all kinds of crazy ideas. I have an idea about a donation fund that can help us make sure that our members have enough money to pay for health insurance. Because the union contract that we use is not high enough to be a part of the health insurance program. So we actually don't have a high enough budget to be able to pay into health insurance. It's a very weird thing. So none of our actors, by working with us, can get health insurance.
Yeah.
And they're all servers or temps or babysitters, so they're not getting health insurance through their company. I
just assumed that if you were in acting that you just didn't, health insurance wasn't an option.
Yeah.
It's not really.
Yeah.
And so I'm only one person, but I'm starting a revolution, and artists deserve to get paid for their time. They deserve not to struggle. If you put in the time and the effort to actually make this your long-term career, you're putting in the same time and effort that a doctor puts into their career. We should be able to live in a society where that art is valued.
Yeah. And
so not everybody should be paid to do that. That's not for everyone, just like not everyone should be paid to be a doctor. There's a skill set that needs to be built, but...
And then every day, like, they leave not you guys or whoever, leave their part-time jobs to come and then just, like, leave some blood on the floor, and go there every night, like, emotionally. I mean, that's really hard to do. Like, people that use their brains... you could sit in front of a computer all day and you're just being creative, use your brain. Other people don't always realize how exhausting that is, even though
there's this great quote in acting where they say your body doesn't know that you're acting. So that if you're really exploring what a character's going through and you're creating a sense of anxiety or you're creating a sense of fear or you're creating a sense of anger, your body doesn't get that this is pretend. So you are going through all of those things emotionally for real. It's not faking it. It's just that you have a craft to put you back to your center, because you actually know how you did that, so you can actually unwind it.
Yeah, it's very true. Because like I do, Mike and I will talk like on the phone or whatever, or face to face, whatever. You know how talking is done. But no, we'll talk and I'll complain about my roommates or something or somebody else, and I'll just jump into the character and I'll just do it. I'll be acting it, and I don't even think about it, and it just kind of happens. But then when I'm done with the character, I can just go back to normal. But I get that emotional stuff too, because not a lot of people can do it, but I can actually make myself cry and stuff. But you got to, you can't just, it's not a switch you can flip. You've got to be able to get into it. It takes practice,
I really like that the body doesn't know you're acting.
Yeah,
because I like a lot of people think, oh, we went to see this play or this movie, and it's like it must be so much fun to play pretend up there. But if it's a really heavy subject,
you're that character for that moment. You're experiencing the depression, the sadness, the anger.
Yep.
And it's like you ever want to say, you kind of want to say to them,
wonder why we all drink so much.
You kind of want to say to them, have you ever gone through a really bad breakup, or have you ever had your
on stage
your mom
every day
or dad dies? Like, I do that every night.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh yeah. No, but seriously, otherwise it's not a real thing.
when I was in San Diego, I did the San Diego premiere of a musical called The Last 5 Years, which is about to come out as a movie. And I was engaged at the time, and the musical is a 2-person musical about a 5-year relationship that ends in divorce. And right before the show opened, my fiance broke up with me. So not only was I creating this breakup every night, I was creating my own breakup every night, and it ran for 8 weeks.
Oh, wow.
All through the holidays. Ran through from my birthday, through Thanksgiving, through
God.
Christmas and New Year's. Yeah.
You have to relive the whole...
Merry Christmas. Screw you.
Exactly. Exactly. So you don't know like what people are going through in their lives, and then they have to go and be completely exposed on stage. In the world, we as human beings create a really effective cloak that keeps us from freaking out when things go wrong. I mean, we can go home to our homes and freak out there, but when you have to open yourself up in your work.
My roommates don't like it when I freak out at home.
My boyfriend describes it as, I think it's his teacher who brought up this idea where when you open yourself up as an actor, a lot of actors think, I just want to give one emotion. I just want to give one piece of me. But that's the equivalent of like having a shop window with a bunch of puppies on one side and thinking you can open the door and have just one puppy run out.
Yeah.
Like those puppies are all of the things that come out with your emotions.
Yeah.
And you can't just like ask for one. You open the door and you're going to get them all.
Yeah, people who don't do it don't get it like that. Like that's what I'm saying. That's what I love about actors is it's really easy for me to sit in front of a computer screen and write something down, and I can pour my heart into it. Like I can open my soul up and just regurgitate, like vomit it out onto the page. And I suffered for it. It's like I've in tears when I'm writing and everything. But at that point for me, it stops. I don't have to like. Okay, can we try that? Can we try that again on the take 10? Yep. Can you do it? Yeah. Just do it another way. There's something about the way you were like making yourself miserable and crying and all unhappy and everything that I just didn't like. Can you do it a different way for me? And you're like, okay, great, thanks. Yeah, I'll go do it again for you.
Well, and this one thing that I feel like in this conversation that's almost missing, I'm hearing it like echo in my head, is for anybody who's not in the industry, who cares what actors think?
Yeah.
Right? They're getting to live their dream. It's all fun and games. Yeah. They get to follow their bliss, and who cares?
That's what it is. Jealousy.
It's jealousy.
Yeah, exactly.
You think you're better than me?
Yeah, and so it's like, all right, so what's my motivation? Ha ha. Oh, you're totally method. Ha ha. It's but so that's also part of what I'm trying. I have a revolution. I have this urge to transform the way we think about the importance of storytelling. And that it is, in my view, it is the only way. I mean, go back to what the cave paintings depicted, which were the tribal rituals of telling stories, which at that time, that language that they created was the only way that they could track their personal history. That's it. And it evolved over the years, and in Greece, it evolved into theater, and then it grew through the ages, and now we're very lucky to be able to have radio and film and all of these mediums that allow us to tell stories. But the actor is the person who makes that connection happen. It's the connection between all of that beautiful writing, and the audience. And the audience can see themselves in what's happening, or even better, see something else they didn't even anticipate, and get to know a new community of people. And that's why it matters. Acting, it matters in our society as a matter of personal history and as really connecting people. And if I can get people, regular people, to understand that, so the life of writers, actors, all these people creating theater, people creating independent film, people who say things like, who cares about indie film? It didn't go anywhere. But an independent film is a piece of art. It's not just a stepping stone to something else. A web series is a piece of art, and it doesn't need to have gotten to the highest platform to mean something. And I want to transform that.
Yeah, revolution.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay. So how do you guys operate your theater place, your theater company? Do you have a regular season where you produce works over a certain couple of months, or?
Yeah, we do. After we were around for about 2 years, we started to realize that we had a season. We were building as a season, so we started actively crafting our seasons thereafter that way. We are just finishing up with our 5th season now. We started in 2009, so this is the end of our 5th. And what we essentially do is right in the next month or so, we'll be applying for probably about 20 plays, 4 of which we will probably get. It's very hard to get the rights to things here in New York because writers really want things to go to Broadway. So they tend to not let the smaller companies do them in favor of waiting for that Broadway hit. So we'll then, based on what shows we get the rights to, we will then craft a season. And what we like to do is create a season that has a theme so that we're exploring one idea throughout an entire season so that our audiences really get a sense of a momentum and a reason to come back show after show. So our 5th season, we explored the idea of loss being a central unifying force in a community. So each play that we did explored one death or multiple deaths and how a community rallied around that death and then how they handle the impact of that death. And so next season, I'm not entirely sure what it'll end up being, but it'll be something socially relevant and probably a little political.
Yeah, so if you're in New York and you're listening to this, go and see that because it's going to be really interesting. I mean, the way we've been talking about it, it's like art in the moment, like what do you call it? Momental art? It's like art. It's like it's there and then it's done. That moment, even though they might do the same thing over and over. The way they did it that night,
it's still never the same.
Yeah, it's just in their memory.
And
it's living art.
We take it one step further because our theater company, most theater companies will say that they do organic work, which is what you're describing. Work that's fresh and in the moment, but. You can't have things that are fresh in the moment while you're also telling an actor where to stand, when to sit, how loud to get, how quiet to get, how angry to get, and you're going to cry here. So we actually don't do that in our plays. Our plays are not blocked in any way like that.
Brad, that was a stupid question. You're an idiot.
No, it's a perfect question. That's the idea, is that so when people come to see our stuff, that's why it feels real, because it's not, an actor doesn't have to find out their motivation for why they're going to sit in the chair. They sit in the chair if they want to, or they don't. We teach them in our rehearsal process, we create the world of the scene or of the play, and each person understands their relationship to that environment.
I love that.
So if I'm doing a play that's set in my living room, I understand my relationship to the living room. I don't need, we do have really wonderful directors, but they're directing something else other than that. They're helping to figure out helping an actor connect to that environment and how do I live in that environment. And then an actor gets to play, so it's like a playground.
Yeah, I love that so much because that's been my thing about acting for so long is that organic in the moment, you don't have to rehearse, pick up the glass, put it here, and pick up this thing and play with it. You just be the person in the moment, and you don't have to memorize every line word for word perfectly. You just have to know basically the intention and, certain things, but I love that that's how you
Except theater people, people aren't like filmmakers. They actually respect the text. So they try to get
I know,
it.
but I'm saying both at the same time. I'm saying you respect it, but you are comfortable enough with it and yourself that you're open to, living in it as opposed to memorizing it.
Exactly. And although, of course, like Mike said, it's, of course, everything's memorized and the playwright's words are golden in the theater. You don't ever, unless you forget your line and you're trying to get back to it, You always go strictly with what the script says.
Potato salad.
It is, the idea is to, it's just like you were saying earlier, Brad, it's like we do try to make sure that each of the scenes really feel like they're coming out of something real and in the moment. And you can do that with the same dialogue. The idea is that you have to understand why a person is saying these words in this way. And it doesn't mean that you have to be loud or soft or have pauses or no pauses. We can really live in the moment. And then what we do, I'm kind of oversimplifying it, but we have a very lengthy rehearsal process where the director works very closely with each actor to create that character's identity and who they are in relationship to other people. So that's our blocking. That's how we set the story. And one of the main reasons that there is blocking in a theater is that it's the one way that a director can set a show.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as a director editing a film. The director can feel at peace with their vision if they can somehow have final say on how things are going to be, how things will look. So it's a very risky thing that we do in our company to really leave it up to the actor ultimately.
Yeah.
But it's really up to the actor anyway.
But
And that's
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just realized, though, because I was talking from like a movie or TV kind of aspect, and then as you're talking, I realized, now, wait a minute, you can't just do Shakespeare like that. You can't just, I feel what the character's going to do, and, where you can't just go off on the dialogue on Shakespeare. You have to.
You'd be surprised. Some people do. But yeah, that's the thing, though. And that's the trick with Shakespeare, that has a certain cadence to it or pentameter. How do you make it socially relevant now without losing that poetry?
Yeah, and you have to say the words in the right context with the right emotion, because if you don't, the audience that doesn't know what all those words mean, they don't get it. But I've seen Shakespeare done where I didn't understand it all, but I knew by the emotion and how they acted, the way they said it. I was like, oh, he's basically saying, I hate you, I'm gonna kill you. I stab at thee.
Exactly.
I stab at thee. She did call me an ass. Okay, so I have one more question about your theater company.
Awesome.
And then we're gonna let you wrap it up. So here's my question for you. You guys, do you work with, so of course my question comes with a pre-question, so there's really two questions, but do you guys work with the same people every time, or do you bring new people in for the show, or do you is it like you guys are like a band where you're always working together?
We have an ensemble that works together year-round. So people come and go based on their circumstances, meaning that, someone might be a member of our company for a year, and then they'll get a job elsewhere, or they'll decide they want to, take a break, or that happens all the time because, we're not paying a living wage yet. We're on our way, but we're very small and very new. So, But our intention is to have the same group of people, and we have the same way of working. So no matter who is here and working with us, anybody who comes to a show with the singing place can count on having the same kind of storytelling. But yeah, our group, we get together every Monday, and every Monday we either read a play aloud or we do a workshop. And then right now, the project we're working on now is we are actually adapting a Camus' The Stranger for a stage adaptation. And so that is something that we're developing as a company. But we're using some of the development methods that were created by the Actors Studio, which is using improvisation to help develop a way for us to tell this story that's unique to our theater company. So even though it's the story of the stranger, it's been deconstructed and it's being rebuilt from an ensemble point of view. It's going to be really exciting.
That sounds cool.
Awesome.
You make me want to come.
Yeah, I really
go watch your show.
You don't know this. You probably see me say it on Twitter, but I should be in New York. I really should.
I know. I want to be.
Come to New York.
So how satisfying is that on a regular basis to be able to to not just grow individually, but as an ensemble, and to be able to dig deeper and deeper with each progressing show, almost like each show is a deepening chapter of the same conversation, where somebody better now because you've worked with them and you've gone there with them before, and now this show can like build from that. Like, how satisfying as like an artist is that, to be able to just like connect with someone deeper and deeper each time?
It's incredible.
Yeah.
You create such a shorthand with people and such a love and affinity for these people, and then to be able to witness, to be able to provide a place where I get to play with my friends is so much fun.
Awesome.
Deeply satisfying. But then to get to see them stretch and grow is amazing. And that's the other benefit to working with people long term. There are things that I've gotten to do in this theater company that no one outside of the company would have allowed me to do.
That's awesome.
For any people who know theater, or if you just look at my picture on Twitter and then hear that I played Roberta and Danny in the Deep Blue Sea, which is a tough, single mother from the Bronx, and it doesn't make any sense. But it was one of my kind of most critically acclaimed performances, and I would never have gotten that opportunity had it not been for this company, and to have a group of people who trusted that I could do the work. And that's what making those relationships is, I think, the only way to deep artistic satisfaction. I think, anyway.
That is awesome. I mean, that's what I'm trying to build with as a filmmaker, is a group of people that I like working with and want to work with and want to do it all over again with.
Right, and they develop the relationship where you just got to look at them and they know what you want.
Yeah, like there's like you said, a shorthand and a comfortability, and then also just, hey, this scene is really difficult. I mean, you got to dig deep for this thing, and to be able to feel safe enough around a group of people that you know is rooting for you from beneath, like from behind you, and saying, we want to see you do this.
Like, they're not secretly going to talk about you after and laugh about the way you did something.
Right. And it's just like...
Well, we might do that. They know
you can't, no.
Okay.
No. I'm insecure. You can't tell me that.
Okay. No, Brad, you would never do that, especially not to you.
Okay, one more thing, and then we're out. Okay, 101, what are your top 3 pieces of advice that you would give an actor? Like someone you were coaching, not based on personal, not that person specifically, but like if you had this, like sitting down with somebody, your top 3 things that you would tell them so that they could stay on track.
Okay. So one would be that business is a learned skill. So there's nothing wrong with them, that they need support. That's the first thing. The second is that being an actor is an ongoing training process. So there's no point where someone is done with their training. So people a lot of times think, I'm going to do my 2-year conservatory and I'll be done. And it's just not the case. So it's a lifetime investment in training. And that's always a surprise to people. The third thing, and this is more related to me personally as a coach, but it's kind of my philosophy on how coaching works, is I describe the industry as being like a coloring book. And my job as a coach is to tell an actor where the lines are. So what is this picture of our industry? And I tell them, where is it safe to color outside the lines? In fact, where is it encouraged to do so? And where is it like you really need to stay within the lines in this particular area? So like an example would be, please make that an 8x10 headshot. Don't get fancy with it. Don't say, no, but my 8.5x11 will really stand out. No, that's just going to hurt you. But the beauty of the business is that the actor gets to choose their color palette. So that how they're going to color in their picture makes the business extremely creative. So they can get that business is something learned, that they will be in training, some sort of craft training, pretty much the whole time of their career, and that the business is creative. They can get those things, they have a chance at being successful at this.
Cool.
You said it very well.
Yes.
Thank you.
So,
I just made that up.
I just made that up.
Off the top of my head.
So
I improv that answer.
So a couple of things. One of the first times, because we've known each other on Twitter for a while, but one of the only time actually I've seen you in action was this video you had posted of you singing something, and I saw you completely differently because I'd only seen you in text form, basically, like funny tweets, back and forth, like joking or whatever. But I saw you come alive while you were singing this. I don't even remember what it was. It was like a show tune, and it was awesome. So I wonder if you will sing us out with something.
Oh my God. Are you joking?
I should have mentioned this to you before, but I'm putting you on the spot. Just like something. Okay, so keep thinking. I'm gonna give some information.
Okay.
If you want to contact Erin, where do you want people to contact you? Website?
She can't think if you're
Twitter?
asking her questions.
I know.
But go ahead.
I'm going to give you my person. I'm going to say you can pretty much find everything about me at my personal website,
Right?
Which is erincronican.com. I'll just make sure that front and center you can see my websites and whatnot. My coaching business is called The Actors Enterprise.
Okay.
And I have a blog, and I write for Backstage, so you can see my stuff there.
Awesome.
And then my theater company is called The Scene Place Theater, and you can find us very easily online. And I'm on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram for all those things.
Right.
And, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to give our stuff, and you have a couple more seconds to think about what you're going to do. Okay.
Okay.
And if you want to contact Film Reverie, you can follow us on Twitter at Film Reverie, Reverie, and or if you want to send us an email, it is filmreveriepodcast@gmail.com, and you can call in for us at 321-804-3271. Leave us a voice message, talk to us, start a conversation. We'd love to hear from you. And now we have Erin. This is my one chance I'm going to get to direct you.
Oh my gosh.
At least for now. So we're going to be sung out by the talented. She's spectacular. I saw this video and I started smiling. I couldn't stop smiling because it was so good.
All right, I will. You've totally put me on the spot. I will do a little bit from West Side Story because I'm the whitest Maria ever.
Oh, cool.
I know.
I think I know what you're going to do. It's going to be awesome.
It was the movie musical that made me want to be an actor. I won the talent show in high school based on this song, so I'll sing a little bit from
Okay.
it.
All right.
There's a place for us, somewhere a place for us, peace and quiet and open air, place for us. Somewhere. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yay.
We can find no better way to end our podcast than with that. We will see you again next time. Erin, thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll talk
Thank
to you
you.
soon.
Yes.
Film Reverie is a production of Broken Sunset Films, LLC. It was created and is produced under a Creative Commons license by Michael Beckemeyer and Bradley Kingston. Copyright Broken Sunset Films, LLC, 2014.
This is my impression of somebody trying to do Shakespeare-type stuff, improving. All right? All right,
God.
Hold on.
Hold on.
It's going to be cool. Stop laughing.
I'm not
Okay.
going to be able to stop laughing. You just
Okay, here it comes. Here it comes. La, 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 la. What's up, homeboy? I think I'll chill here on the wall. Oh, look, here come the cops. Everybody freeze. Nobody move. Nobody move. Everybody freeze. I got a gun. You got a gun. I got a gun. You got a gun. And I will shoot you in your ass. Yay.
Wow. That's a really
What's
tough
that
act to
from?
follow.
Some comedian did something like that a long time ago. It's always stuck with me.